People chuckled when the elderly man hobbled into the karate class. But once he tied on a faded black belt and moved with the grace of flowing water, the laughter vanished. The door creaked open moments before warm-ups began. Heads turned. Some paused mid-stretch. A tall, slender man with deep wrinkles etched into his features walked into the studio, acting as though he didn't notice the subtle shift in mood, though he definitely did. His name was Otis Renford. He was 74. He moved with a slight limp, his left foot dragging just enough to show it had been trained to keep going, even when reluctant. A weathered windbreaker hung from his narrow shoulders. His thick, square glasses kept slipping down his nose, and his keys rattled a bit too loudly in his pocket. The class was packed, 14 students, mostly between the ages of 15 and 30. They stretched, chatted, and warmed up. A few exchanged glances before a voice rang out, not loud, but not hushed either. "What's he here for? Tai Chi or something?" The voice came from Trayvon Blake, 19. Bold, talented, great footwork, but lacking humility. A few snickers followed. Not everyone laughed, but no one spoke up, not even the instructor, Jake Mendez, who had been running the beginner class every Tuesday night for the past 6 months. He simply gave Otis a quick wave and carried on. Otis didn't say a word. No response, no reaction. He made his way to the far corner, set down his water bottle, and leaned the cane gently against the mirror. His gaze moved slowly across the room, observing. Jake clapped his hands. "Let's hit those horse stances. Lock your knees, tighten your core. Let's go." Everyone got to it, even Otis. Without saying a thing, he removed his sneakers and peeled off the windbreaker. Underneath, he wore a simple, faded gray t-shirt tucked into black martial arts pants. His frame was slim, wiry, seemingly frail. Most students barely noticed him now, focused on their own forms, except one. Bryn, 16 and new to the class, kept glancing his way. Not with judgment, but with curiosity, like she was piecing together a puzzle. Jake moved along the line, observing stances. Trayvon kept sneaking peeks at Otis, snickering whenever the old man adjusted or wobbled. It was clear Otis wasn't new to movement, but his body seemed reluctant, like it was still remembering how to move. Jake called everyone over to demonstrate front kicks. He stepped forward, snapped his leg into position with precision, then motioned for students to pair up and practice. That's when Otis walked back to his bag. He reached in and pulled out a belt, dark, frayed, clearly worn with time. With calm, deliberate fingers, he tied it around his waist. The moment it settled in place, the energy in the room shifted. Trayvon squinted. "Wait, dude's got a black belt?" Someone near him whispered, maybe he got it off eBay. But then Otis moved. He rolled one shoulder and launched a kick. Not flashy. Simple. Precise. Straight to the foam target leaning against a mirrored wall. His heel stopped just short of it. Clean form, flawless balance. The room went still. Even Jake blinked in disbelief. Otis said nothing, just stepped quietly back into line. Trayvon opened his mouth but said nothing. Bryn turned to the girl beside her. "That was legit, right?" The girl nodded silently. Otis didn't smile or look for attention. He stood there, hands behind his back, eyes forward, waiting for the next instruction as if this was routine. But something had changed, and not everyone was ready to accept it. Jake tried to carry on, but the atmosphere had shifted. No matter how hard they tried to ignore it, they had all witnessed what Otis just did. Still, class resumed. Students paired up. Trayvon worked with his usual partner, Devin, a big guy built like a linebacker, but more bark than bite. Bryn was matched with Mariah, who had decent technique but struggled to keep her balance. Otis had no partner. Jake noticed but said nothing. He didn't quite know what to make of it. Part of him wanted to pull Otis aside and ask about his story, but pride got in the way. This was his class. So he just observed from the sidelines, arms crossed. Otis moved alone at the edge of the mat. No warm-up, no stretching. Just stillness, then motion. Smooth, efficient, every movement purposeful. Devin nudged Trayvon. "Bro, that kick earlier? That wasn't no YouTube fake." Trayvon scoffed. "Old man's got a few tricks, sure. Doesn't mean much." "Still better than how you moved last week," Devin muttered. Meanwhile, Bryn was struggling. Her stance was off, and her feet kept slipping. Frustrated, she sat down and rubbed her ankle. Otis noticed. He walked over, slow, steady, and crouched beside her, which surprised even him. His joints hated crouching, but he did it anyway. "Your back heel," he said gently. "It's lifting too soon. Keep it planted and push the force from your hip, not your toes." Bryn blinked. Okay." She tried again. It still wasn't perfect, but better. She looked up at him, a little embarrassed. "Did I get it right?" Otis gave a small nod. Across the mat, Jake saw them and hesitated. Part of him wanted to step in, but again he held back. Otis wasn't trying to outshine anyone. He was being careful, deliberate. Then Trayvon, feeling ignored, raised his voice. "Hey, old man, you ever teach or just pull out that belt for show?" A few chuckles. Some students winced. Otis didn't respond immediately. He turned, calm and composed. "I've taught," he said. "Long time ago." Trayvon smirked. "Yeah? Where? Senior center?" "He hasn't done anything to you." Trayvon ignored her. His eyes stayed on Otis. Jake finally stepped forward. "That's enough, Trayvon." But Otis raised a hand. "It's all right." He moved closer to Trayvon, just a few steps. No anger, no challenge, just calm. He gestured toward the center of the mat. "You want to try something?" he asked. "We do it properly. No risks." Trayvon laughed. "You serious?" Otis didn't answer. Jake looked conflicted. "I don't think this is necessary," Otis glanced his way. "Just movement. No contact." Jake hesitated, then gave in. "Fine. Light sparring. Keep it clean." Trayvon clapped his hands. "Let's go, Grandpa." They squared off, and once again the energy shifted. Trayvon bounced in place, cocky and sure. Otis stood still, arms down, not ready to fight, but ready for something. He simply observed Trayvon, eyes sharp, focused, like a predator tracking prey that hadn't noticed it was being watched. Trayvon feinted left and lunged forward. Otis didn't flinch. He waited. The next move came fast. Trayvon stepped in with a flashy spinning sidekick, wide and dramatic. Otis shifted to the side with one small, precise step, and Trayvon's kick met only air. He stumbled, barely, but enough to color his face with frustration. They reset. Trayvon came in harder this time, launching a flurry of rapid, unstructured punches, trying to overwhelm. Otis parried them all, not with brute force, but with minimal economical movements, deflections more than blocks, each one smooth and intentional. The room was silent. Jake blinked. Bryn's jaw had dropped. Eventually, Trayvon stepped back, breathing hard, forehead glistening. Otis, barely winded, calmly returned to his spot, gave a short, respectful bow, and walked back to his bag. No gloating, no words. Just controlled, effortless motion. Trayvon mumbled something unintelligible and stalked off to the side bench, waving Jake away when he tried to speak to him. Otis sat, took a sip from his water bottle, and scanned the room, not judging, just observing. But some eyes were still locked on him, and one of them couldn't hold back anymore. The rest of class unfolded under a tense hush. Jake kept the drills moving, but it was clear something had changed. The usual chatter was gone. No joking. No easy laughs. Most students kept sneaking looks at Otis, who now stood off to the side, flowing through forms with graceful precision. Trayvon stayed seated, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He didn't say much after the spar. Devin sat a short distance away, stealing glances now and then, most likely rethinking the earlier comments he'd laughed at. When Jake finally dismissed the group, some students left in a hurry, unsure how to act. Others lingered, pretending to scroll through their phones, pretending not to care. Otis stayed by the back wall, towel draped around his neck, water bottle in hand. Bryn didn't leave. She approached slowly, clutching her gym bag like a security blanket. "Hey, Mr. Renford, right?" Otis looked up and gave a slight nod. "That's me." She lowered herself to the floor nearby, close enough to speak, not close enough to intrude. "That was crazy," she said. "I mean, how you moved. I've never seen anything like that in real life. Otis didn't smile, but a flicker of amusement passed to his eyes. Takes time. Lots of years. How many? She asked, her curiosity genuine. He took a slow breath. Started training around 19. Taught most of my adult life. Stopped about 20 years back. Why'd you stop? He was quiet for a few moments. His fingers tapped his knee softly. 1, 2, life shifts, he said eventually. Some things fall away, even if part of you still misses them. Bryn nodded slowly, even if she didn't fully understand. At 16, letting go meant something else. You were in the military? She asked, a little softer now. Yeah, he said. Stationed in Okinawa. That's where I really learned. Her eyes widened. So you trained over there? Like real Kyokushin style? Otis offered a faint smile. As real as it gets. She glanced around, making sure no one was close, then leaned in slightly. Were you mad when Trayvon came at you like that? Otis shook his head. It wasn't about me. He had something to prove. He'll feel worse before he feels better, but if he's smart, he'll grow from it. Bryn hesitated, then asked, You gonna come back? Otis tilted his head. Why do you ask? She shrugged. I just think people could really learn from you. Like, not just techniques. The real stuff. He stayed silent for a second, then asked, What is it you want to learn? She blinked, caught off guard. I don't know. Confidence, maybe? I started this class after my dad left. Mom said it'd make me stronger. I think she meant muscles, but I feel like it's more than that. Otis looked at her, his eyes steady. It is more. Your body catches on fast. Your mind? That takes longer. That made her smile. Jake walked over at last, rubbing the back of his neck. Hey, Mr. Renford? I just wanted to say, what you did today, I wasn't expecting it. Might have underestimated you. Otis stood, slowly. No harm done. Jake hesitated, then added, You ever think about teaching again? Even part-time, just helping out? Otis didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved across the room, nearly empty now. He glanced at Bryn, then at Trayvon, still on the bench, face in his hands. Not sure yet, he said. Jake nodded. Well, if you do, the door's open. Otis nodded politely, then looked back to Bryn. You got a notebook? She tilted her head. What for? If you're serious about learning, start writing. What works, what doesn't. Your body's telling you more than you realize. Bryn whipped out her phone. I can type it. Otis raised an eyebrow. Typing's fine. Writing's better. Slower. Makes you think. She grinned. Old school works. He grabbed his cane and water bottle and headed to the door. But just before stepping out, he turned slightly. See you next week. Bryn gave him a quick thumbs up. But before next week arrived, Otis would face something he hadn't confronted in a long while, and it wouldn't be inside the dojo. The next morning, Wednesday, brought gray skies and wet sidewalks. Otis Renford didn't mind. He'd lived through worse than a little drizzle. He sat on the edge of his modest twin bed in his small two-bedroom apartment on Harris Street, pulling on his socks, left first and right. Routine mattered. Structure kept him grounded. The apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the occasional gust of wind rattling the windows. On the kitchen table rested a black and white photo, faded but framed, of a group of men in uniform, heads shaved, expressions solemn. A younger, stronger Otis stood in the center, arms behind his back, with the hills of Okinawa barely visible behind them. He stared at the photo for a moment before lifting his coffee mug. The drink was cold. He didn't care. Next to the picture frame was a smaller one. Not a photo, but a neatly folded white belt, edges inked with kanji. He'd never told anyone what the characters meant. Not even his brother, back when he was still alive. By mid-morning, Otis had made his way to Jefferson Park. He liked the quiet path behind the ball field, where a row of benches faced a small man-made pond. It was peaceful there. Same squirrels. Sometimes kids on bikes. But mostly quiet. He was halfway into a slow standing stretch when a voice broke the silence. Didn't think you'd actually be out here. He turned. Bryn was walking up the path, backpack slung over her shoulder. How'd you find me? He asked. She grinned. You told Jake you liked walking by Jefferson Park, so I took a shot, Bryn said, strolling up. Otis gave a quiet, amused shake of his head. Do you always trap people down like this? Only the ones who do fancy blocks like it's nothing, she teased, dropping her backpack onto the bench. I mentioned you to my mom, Bryn added. Told her this older guy made our whole class freeze just by standing still. Otis let out a soft laugh. Still not sure if that's praise or a warning. She said you reminded her of my granddad, Bryn replied. He passed when I was 8. He used to teach me how to punch. We shattered our bathroom mirror once. After that, Grandma banned any training inside. Otis stared out across the pond. He sounds like a good man. He was. After a pause, Bryn asked, was it the war that injured your leg? Otis took a beat. No, he said. It happened years later. I was teaching, demo went wrong. A younger student wasn't ready. I tried to break his fall. Hip cracked. Took me years to walk right again. Bryn grimaced. Dang. Yeah, Otis said. But that wasn't the hardest part. Bryn fell silent, sensing there was more. I had a student back in '89, Otis continued. Rico, 17. Sharp kid, always eager to learn. Reminded me a lot of myself. What happened? She asked gently. His cousin got into some deep trouble, gang stuff. Rico tried to step in and help him out. One night he didn't show up for class. Next morning I found out he was shot behind a gas station. Bryn was quiet. I blame myself, Otis said, voice low. Thought maybe if I trained him better or faster, he'd have defended himself. Or maybe if he stayed focused on training, he wouldn't have been in that spot at all. He rubbed his palms together slowly, like trying to thaw something frozen. I closed my school, gave away my gear. I didn't want to be responsible for anyone else getting hurt. Bryn's throat tightened. But it wasn't your fault. I understand that now, Otis said. But guilt doesn't listen to reason. It tells you to quit, makes you think it's all behind you. They sat in quiet reflection. Maybe Rico did use what you taught him, Bryn said. Maybe he helped his cousin because of what you gave him. Otis looked at her. You think that helps? She shrugged. Not really, but maybe it should. He smiled faintly. You ever think about therapy? I used to want to be a detective, she replied. But now, maybe a martial arts teacher. Otis didn't laugh, but something softened in his expression. Don't rush into the black belt, he said. The belt doesn't teach you anything. It's the time you take to earn it that does. Bryn nodded, taking that in. But Otis's time wasn't done teaching yet. The following Tuesday, Otis came back to class. Just like before, he entered right before warm-ups, same slow gait, same calm energy. But this time there was no laughter. A few students looked over but quickly looked away. Trayvon was by the wall, tying his shoes in silence. Devin gave Otis a small, respectful nod. Jake greeted him differently now. Glad you're back, Mr. Renford. Just Otis, he replied. Bryn ran up, notebook in hand. I brought this, she grinned. Otis smiled. Good start. Class got underway. Drills, forms, focus work. The mood in the room had shifted. Tension remained, but curiosity had replaced skepticism. People were watching Otis now with interest, not disbelief. Bryn absorbed his every move. Even Jake glanced over more than once. But Trayvon was off. His strikes were quick but clumsy. His footwork sloppy. And his eyes kept flicking to Otis, still composed, calmly correcting Bryn's stances in the corner. Trayvon had assumed Otis wouldn't come back. But here he was, confident, quiet, and clearly still skilled. Then it happened. During the water break, Trayvon walked straight over. Hey, he said. You got time after class? Otis lifted an eyebrow. You looking to spar again? Nah, Trayvon replied. I want a real test. The room hushed. Devin looked up. Jake tensed. Let's not go down this road again, Jake warned. Trayvon held up a hand. Not like last time. I've been thinking all week. You embarrassed me and I deserved it. But I want to know what you know. How to stay cool. How to see what's coming. All of it. The silence deepened. Otis studied him. You want to learn or just beat me? I want to earn it, Trayvon said. For real this time. Otis gave a small nod. All right. He turned to Jake. Mind if we use the back mat later? Jake nodded slowly. Go ahead. When class wrapped, some students left quietly. Others lingered. Bryn, Devin, and two more hovered nearby, clearly trying not to miss what was coming. Otis led Trayvon to the back mat. No sparring, Otis said. Just pressure drills. You learn under pressure, not pain. Trayvon nodded. Otis moved around him, observing. Stop bouncing. Roots matter. Feel the floor. Trayvon adjusted. You keep showing your leady hand. You're giving away the play before it starts. More adjustments. Breathe, Otis continued. You're locking it up when you should be letting it out. Don't freeze. Flow. Trayvon responded, arms instinctively blocking. Better, Otis said. But your reaction's fear. We want calm. Always calm. For 20 minutes, Otis walked him through tight drills, close quarters movement, rhythm, counters. Trayvon was dripping sweat, lungs working hard, but he didn't quit. Finally, Otis stepped back. That's it? Trayvon blinked. Already? For today. He stood still for a moment. Can I come back next week? Otis gave a sideways glance. Depends. On what? Whether you return with your mouth or your ears. Bryn chuckled from the sidelines. Trayvon cracked a genuine smile. Fair. He held out a hand. Otis shook it firmly. Jake saw it. So did Devin. And Bryn, who was already scribbling in her notebook. Otis gathered his things and started toward the door. But not everyone watching the shadows was just another student. The next person waiting for Otis had absolutely nothing to do with martial arts. The following morning, Otis found himself running behind schedule for a doctor's appointment. His hip had been bothering him again. Not a sharp pain, but that persistent, dull resistance that never quite left him. Being late grated on him, years of military routine made that habit hard to shake. The community clinic wasn't far, just a few blocks from his apartment, and he usually walked there cane in hand, cap low over his brow. He liked to feel the pavement beneath his shoes, even when every step reminded him he wasn't as young as he used to be. Walking always felt better than staying still. He was halfway down Forest Avenue when someone called his name. Mr. Renford. He turned to see Bryn jogging toward him, her backpack bouncing at her side. Didn't think I'd catch you, she said, slightly out of breath. You following me now? Otis asked, half smiling. She grinned. Nah, I'm just on my way to school. Saw you walking and thought I'd ask, do you still have any of your old training journals? Otis shook his head. Burned them. Her face fell. Seriously? He shrugged. Didn't think I'd ever need them again. They walked together for a while. Bryn kicked a small stone ahead of them with her shoe. I liked what you said last night, she told him. About pressure teaching more than pain. That stuck with me. Most of what's worth knowing doesn't shout, Otis replied. It whispers. You've got to be quiet enough inside to hear it. Bryn looked at him like she was trying to memorize every word. Then a car blared by, music blasting through open windows. Otis didn't even flinch, but Bryn jumped a little. He noticed and chuckled softly. Some things never change. As they neared the corner by the clinic, Otis's pace slowed. His hips stiffened. Bryn noticed. You okay? Yeah, just needs a minute. She didn't rush him. They waited together until the light changed. Before they crossed, she said, I told Trayvon I'm glad he asked you to teach him. He's still kind of a jerk, but he listens now. That's something. Otis gave a small nod. He's learning to walk a new path. Walk different? Yeah. You start with training the body, but eventually the way you carry yourself through the world starts to shift too. Bryn smiled, then gave him a wave and jogged off toward her school. Otis turned the corner, his limp a little more noticeable now. The clinic came into view, just one more block. That's when he saw her. A woman sitting on the front steps of the clinic, late 30s. Her jacket was too light for the weather. Hair pulled back, face tired. She was staring at the pavement like it might vanish. Otis squinted. Something about her was familiar. As he got closer, she stood. "Mr. Renford?" He stopped. "Do I know you?" "It's Yvette," she said. "Yvette Carr, Rico's cousin." Otis froze. The name hit him like a punch to the gut. Yvette stepped forward. "You probably don't recognize me. It's been a long time." He lowered his cane slightly. "I remember you." She looked down, then back at him. "I was visiting my mom. Drove past the old dojo yesterday. Just condos now." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I always wondered," she said. "After Rico, everything, why you disappeared." Otis inhaled slowly. Didn't feel right staying. Felt like I failed him. Her eyes widened. "You what?" I should have prepared him better. Yvette stepped toward him quickly. "Don't you say that." "Rico looked up to you. You were the only one who saw more than just another angry kid. You gave him something to believe in. That meant something. You meant something." Otis's throat tightened. She softened her tone. "He wasn't trying to fight that night. He was trying to protect me. That bullet? It wasn't meant for him. It was meant for me." Otis met her eyes, really looked for the first time in nearly 30 years. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "No one did," she replied. "I couldn't say it then. I was 17. Scared. I thought if I spoke it out loud, it would make it real." They stood in silence. Otis slowly lowered himself onto the steps beside her. "I've carried it," he said. "All these years." Yvette nodded. "Then maybe it's time to set it down." He looked at her, and for the first time in decades, a small part of that burden eased. But letting go would only matter if he knew where to go from here, and someone else was already preparing to teach him that next step. The rec center smelled like sweat and worn-out mats. Usual pre-class chatter echoed through the gym, but this time it carried a new edge, anticipation. Otis arrived 10 minutes early, walking with a little more weight, not just physical, but emotional too. Yesterday's conversation with Yvette still lingered in his mind, heavier than his cane. Jake was already on the floor stretching. He glanced up and waved. This time, it felt warmer. "Otis," he said. "Good timing. I was hoping to catch you." Otis walked over, steady but slow. "Everything all right?" Jake looked around and lowered his voice. "I've been thinking. We got 2 new sign-ups. Real green. I think they'd do better with you mentoring them, if you're up for it." Otis didn't reply right away. "You sure?" Jake looked him in the eye. "Wouldn't ask if I wasn't." Otis gave a small nod. "All right then." By the time class began, the mat was full again. Bryn was scribbling in her notebook. Trayvon stood near the mirror practicing footwork, paying real attention now. Devin greeted Otis with a quiet "good to see you," and took his spot. Jake led the warm-up, then handed off the second half to Otis. It was a subtle shift, but everyone noticed. Otis didn't brag. He just stepped up and spoke. "We're not just learning how to kick or block," he said. "This is about focus, discipline, learning how to stay still when everything inside you wants to react." Trayvon nodded slightly, listening. "Balance doesn't start with your feet," Otis added. "It begins with your breath. Lose that, you lose the moment." He walked among the students, correcting posture with a gentle hand or small adjustment. He spoke softly, but his presence filled the room. This time it was respect, not doubt, that followed him. After class, Bryn stayed behind. "I wanted to ask you something," she said, closing her notebook. Otis sat on the bench, his cane resting nearby. "What's that?" "You said guilt makes you believe things," she said. "What changed? What made you come back?" Otis paused. "I spoke to someone I hadn't seen in 30 years. Rico's cousin. She told me something I never knew. Something I needed to hear." Bryn leaned forward. "What was it?" "She said he died protecting her," Otis replied. That he used what I taught him, not to fight, but to protect. Bryn's eyes widened. I spent years thinking I failed him. Carried that weight like a scar, Otis said. But turns out, he didn't fall short. I just never saw what he did with the strength he'd earned. Bryn was quiet, absorbing it. Then she asked, "Is that why you decided to help teach again?" Otis nodded. You can't carry something forever. Eventually, you either pass it on or it turns to stone. There was a pause. Did you ever think you'd be doing this again? She asked. Teaching? Guiding people? He exhaled slowly. No. But maybe that's the lesson. Bryn tilted her head. What do you mean? You don't always realize what you still have to offer, Otis said, until someone asks you to share it. She smiled and opened her notebook again, ready to keep learning. Otis chuckled. Go ahead. Across the room, Trayvon approached. His expression wasn't cocky this time, more grounded, even a little respectful. Hey, he said, I was thinking, if you ever wanted to do a Saturday morning thing like one-on-one work, I'd be up for it. Just throwing that out there. Otis glanced up. You ready to be pushed? Trayvon gave a casual shrug. Yeah, I think I am. Otis nodded. Then we'll find out. As Trayvon walked away, Bryn said, He's changing. Maybe, Otis replied. Sometimes the people who fight the hardest to be noticed are the ones who feel unseen. Bryn scribbled that into her notebook, too. Otis reached for his cane and got to his feet slowly. The mat was empty now, the overhead lights humming faintly. You ever think about teaching one day? He asked. Bryn laughed. Maybe in like 20 years. You don't have to wait that long, he said. But before she could ask what he meant, the coming week would test everything Otis believed about strength, trust, and leadership. Saturday brought a different atmosphere to the rec center. The building was still, no group classes yet. The only sound was the soft rhythm of sneakers brushing the mat as Trayvon practiced alone in the corner. Early, which was a first. Otis arrived with a weathered gym bag slung over his shoulder. Nothing flashy, just functional, dependable, like most things he owned. He wore his usual black training pants, a plain white t-shirt, and a look that made it clear he wasn't there to waste time. Trayvon glanced up and gave a short nod. Didn't think you'd come. Otis dropped the bag near the wall. That makes two of us. Trayvon cracked a grin. Been putting in some work. Good, Otis said. Today we find out what stuck. They didn't start with sparring. Otis began with footwork. Circles, quick shifts, distributing weight from heel to toe without losing balance. After 20 minutes, Trayvon was already glistening with sweat. You're breathing too fast, Otis said, moving around him like a slow tide. Control it. Breath is your fuel. You're leaking energy every time you exhale wrong. Trayvon nodded and kept going. Otis didn't let up. The drills had little to do with punches, close quarters movement, shoulder angles, silent steps. After an hour, Trayvon's shirt clung to him soaked, but he stayed with it, adjusting, absorbing. You think you're ready for contact? Otis asked. Trayvon straightened. Yeah. Light like before? No, Otis replied. Real. Controlled, but full contact. No takedowns. Trayvon's eyes flickered just a bit. Then he nodded. Let's do it. They squared up. The first exchange was quick. Trayvon was more composed now, not rushing, eyes alert. He kept his guard up. Otis struck once, just a sharp tap to the thigh. It wasn't forceful, but precise. Trayvon flinched. You're still thinking too much, Otis said. By the time you react, the moment's already gone. They moved again. Trayvon faked low, swung wide with a hook, too wide. Otis didn't bother to block. He stepped in and tapped Trayvon's chest. If I was someone else, he said, that would have been your jaw. Trayvon clenched his jaw and nodded. They reset. The next few minutes were rough. Trayvon was trying too hard. Every miss chipped away at his patience. His punches turned sloppy, heavier. Then it happened. Trayvon, frustrated, threw a wild right. No control, all emotion. Otis leaned back, but not far enough. The punch brushed his temple. Otis staggered slightly, Trayvon froze. Man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Otis raised his hand. Stop. He walked off the mat, sat on the bench, reached for his towel, said nothing. Trayvon stood there, uncertain. Should I go? Otis didn't answer. No. Trayvon sat across from him. His knuckle was swelling. Does it get easier? Trayvon asked. The control part? Otis looked at him. His voice was calm, but direct. Never easy, but it becomes second nature. You learn not to carry your anger in your fists. I wasn't mad at you, Trayvon said. I was mad at myself. That's the kind you have to watch most, Otis replied. They sat there, not as teacher and student now, but as two people recognizing the truth about themselves. I lost control, Trayvon said. Otis nodded. You did. Trayvon waited, for criticism, maybe a lesson. But Otis simply asked, so now what? Trayvon looked down. I keep showing up. Otis rose, stretching his hip. Good answer. He reached into his bag, pulled out a roll of tape, tossed it to Trayvon. For your hand, he said. Trayvon caught it, surprised. Thanks. Otis picked up his cane and headed toward the exit. He paused. Ever tell you how many bones I broke before I figured out how to keep my hands soft? Trayvon shook his head. 17, Otis said. First one was a finger. Thought strength was about hitting harder. Turns out it's knowing when not to hit at all. Trayvon absorbed that as Otis left, saying nothing else. But by Tuesday night, everyone had heard about that morning, and someone unexpected had taken notice. By the time the next class began, the dojo was buzzing. More students than usual had turned up. Word had spread, not just that Otis sparred with Trayvon, but that Trayvon had walked out changed, focused, quieter, like he'd seen something that shifted him. Even Jake noticed. He approached Otis before class, holding a folded piece of paper. 6 new sign-ups, he said. 4 of them said they came after hearing about Saturday. Otis glanced at the paper. So we're promoting silent black belts now? Jake smiled. People know authenticity when they see it. Otis didn't reply, but the look in his eyes said enough. Class began. The movements were sharper, the energy tighter. Otis didn't raise his voice. He didn't command the room. He simply moved through it, gently correcting a wrist here, a chin there, adjusting posture with quiet confidence. During partner drills, Otis called Bryn over. I want you to run this one with Devin. Her eyebrows shot up. Me? You've got the rhythm now. Time to pass it on. Devin looked surprised, too, but nodded. Let's go. Bryn turned to Otis. What if I mess it up? Then fix it, he said. That's how we learn. That's how we lead. Bryn paused, then gave a small nod. Otis stepped back and watched. She wasn't perfect. Her voice shook at first. Her cues came out a little clumsy, but after a few rounds she adjusted, her instructions clearer, more confident. Otis chuckled. Be my guest. Across the mat, Trayvon made his way over. This time he wasn't cocky. He seemed grounded. Hey, he said. I was thinking, if you ever wanted to do some Saturday morning one-on-one training, I'd be up for it. Just putting it out there. Otis looked up. You ready to be pushed? Trayvon gave a small shrug. Yeah, I think I am. Otis nodded. Then we'll find out. As Trayvon walked away, Bryn said, He's changing. Maybe, Otis said. Sometimes the people who fight the hardest to be seen are the ones who feel the most invisible. Bryn quickly scribbled that down, too. Otis grabbed his cane and rose slowly. The mat was empty now, the overhead lights buzzing softly. You ever think about teaching one day? He asked. Bryn laughed. Maybe in 20 years. You don't have to wait that long, Otis said. Before she could ask what he meant, life would soon bring a test that would challenge everything Otis believed about strength, trust, and leadership. Saturday had a different feel at the rec center. Quieter, no classes yet. The only sound was a steady thud of sneakers on the mat as Trayvon worked through a basic form in the corner. He was early, which was new. Otis walked in with an old gym bag slung over one shoulder. Same black training pants, white t-shirt, unflashy, dependable, like him. Trayvon looked up and nodded. Didn't think you'd show. Otis dropped a bag near the wall. That makes two of us. Trayvon smiled faintly. Been practicing a lot. Good, Otis said. Let's see how much stuck. They didn't spar right away. Otis had him drilling footwork, small circles, bursts of movement, shifting weight with control. Your breathing's too fast, Otis said, circling him. Control it. It's your fuel. Right now, you're leaking power with every step. Trayvon nodded and kept moving. Otis ran him through close-quarters drills, shoulder pivots, slips, silent motion. Nothing flashy but demanding. An hour in, Trayvon was drenched, shirt clinging to his back. Still, he pushed through. You think you're ready for contact? Otis asked. Yeah, Trayvon said. Light, like before? No, Otis replied. Real. No takedowns, but controlled hits. For real. Trayvon blinked, then nodded. Let's do it. Their first exchange was sharp. Trayvon was more calculated now, no rushing, staying tight. Otis tagged him with a quick strike to the thigh. Clean, not hard. Trayvon flinched. You're still overthinking, Otis said. By the time you choose, it's too late. They circled again. Trayvon feinted low, threw a wide hook. Too wide. Otis stepped in and tapped his chest. If I were someone else, Otis said, that would have hit your jaw. Trayvon gritted his teeth and nodded. The next few rounds got sloppy. Trayvon was trying too hard to prove something. Each miss chipped at his focus. Then, frustrated, he let a looping punch fly. It grazed Otis's temple. Not heavy, but enough to make him stagger. Trayvon froze. Oh, man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Otis held up a hand. Stop. He walked to the bench and sat, wiping sweat from his brow. Said nothing. Trayvon stood awkwardly. Should I go? Otis didn't respond. Trayvon slowly sat across from him, rubbing his knuckles. Does it get easier? The control part? Otis looked at him. Never easy, but it becomes familiar. You learn not to store anger in your fists. I wasn't mad at you, Trayvon said. I was mad at myself. Otis nodded. That's the kind you need to watch out for. They sat there, not as teacher and student, but as two people learning something real. I lost control, Trayvon said. You did, Otis agreed. Trayvon waited, maybe expecting a lecture. But Otis simply asked, so what now? I keep showing up, Trayvon answered. Otis stood slowly. Good answer. He tossed him some tape. For your hand. As he headed for the door, Otis paused. You know how many bones I broke before I learned how to hit soft? Trayvon shook his head. 17. First was a finger. Thought power meant hitting harder. Turns out real strength is knowing when not to strike. By Tuesday night, the mat was packed. Word had gotten out about what happened Saturday. Not just that Trayvon had sparred with Otis, but that he walked away different. Jake noticed. We've got 6 new sign-ups, he said, handing Otis a paper. 4 came because of Trayvon. Otis glanced at the sheet. What, we're marketing now? Jake smiled. People recognize the real thing. Otis didn't say much during class. He moved through the room calmly, correcting a stance here, a posture there. When it came time for partner work, he called Bryn over. Run this with Devin. Me? She said. You've got the rhythm. Now teach it. She hesitated. What if I mess it up? Then you fix it. That's how you learn. That's how you lead. She wasn't perfect, but she found her voice. Devin followed her cues. A few minutes later, Trayvon walked up. Can I help someone too? You want to teach now? Otis asked. You said pressure teaches more than pain. Teaching feels like pressure. Otis didn't say no. He pointed to a new student, Avery, a tall, quiet sophomore, clearly overwhelmed. Start with the basics. As Trayvon guided Avery, Otis finally sat. Jake came over. You think he's ready to teach? He's not, Otis replied. That's why he needs to try. Jake nodded. You ever think of running your own classes again? Otis chuckled. I ran plenty back in the day. Yeah, Jake said, but not here. You offering? Otis asked. We've got space, Jake said. Otis didn't answer. Instead, he stood. Bring it in. Students gathered. I spent most of my life in rooms like this, he said, and if I've learned one thing, it's that everyone walks in with something. Pride, pain, fear, anger. Trayvon looked at his hands. But we don't train to fight each other. We train to fight what's inside. That voice telling you you're not enough or that you have to prove something. Bryn stopped writing and looked up. If you're just here to hit harder, this isn't your place. But if you want to learn when not to hit, when to breathe, when to stand steady, then maybe this mat is for you. I'm not here to impress you, he finished. I'm here because someone asked me to show up, and sometimes that's when change begins. Class dismissed. No one rushed out. Some shook his hand. Bryn hugged him. Trayvon stayed to clean the mats. Jake leaned over. They're hearing you now. Otis picked up a towel. That's because I stopped trying to say everything. Jake grinned. Still think you're done teaching? Otis didn't answer. But he looked out at the mat, not empty, just starting something new. 2 weeks later, during Tuesday's class, Otis barely spoke. He stayed in the back, quiet, going through the motions. Jake led most of the drills. Bryn guided the group with confidence. Trayvon helped Avery with calm, clear instructions. Mistakes happened, but nobody lost focus. Everyone kept going. After class, Bryn ran over. Did I go too fast on that drill? No, Otis said. You found the rhythm. Others followed. She sat beside him. I didn't think I could do this. You're not doing it, he said. You've already done it. Now keep showing up. Will you still come every week? She asked. Not every week, he said. Why not? Otis looked toward the mat. Because now you don't need me every time. She went quiet. But we want you here. That's different, he said. I'll stop by, just not to lead. Jake waved at Otis from across the room with a clipboard. Bryn stood. If you're not staying, who's going to keep Trayvon in check? Otis smiled. That's your job now. She laughed and walked off. Otis stayed seated, letting the room sound settle. Jake sat beside him. You sure? Yeah. You could still lead. They're listening now, not just to your moves. Otis gave a quiet shrug. That's why it's time. You built something here, Jake said. No, Otis said. I reminded them it was already there. They sat in silence. Then Otis stood, grabbed his cane and bag. Jake asked, then why come back? Otis smiled. To watch. Outside, the sun was setting behind the rec center. Otis made his way to his usual bench near the soccer field. He sat down and breathed deep. He didn't see the field. He saw Rico, Bryn, Trayvon, moments replaying quietly. Mr. Renford. It was Bryn at the door. You forgot your towel. Keep it, he called back. Why? Someone's going to need it for the next round of drills. She laughed and disappeared inside. Otis sat back. No speeches, no fanfare. Just a man, a bench, and the knowledge that what he carried for decades had finally found a new home. Because the hardest part of teaching isn't being heard. It's knowing when to let go.